Rabino, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. To speak about why life has a meaning, you chose like
Right.
a story from Auschwitz.
I did.
Why did you choose it?
I chose that story because that was a place where you might think that life is completely meaningless. In the concentration camps, people would think, why bother to live? And many people died. There's a wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning, where Viktor Frankl talks about the fact that anybody who deeply believed there was purpose and meaning in life managed to survive the camps. And the people who didn't survive. So it's a sort of test case for whether life has meaning.
Yes, can you tell us what's more about the story?
The story was Rabbi Hugo Grin, who was with his father in Auschwitz, and it was right before Hanukkah, or during Hanukkah, and his father took the margarine ration and used it to make a Chanukiah, and he lit the candle with it, and Hugo Grin as a child was very, very upset because he said, this is food, and you need food to live, and we don't have very much of it. And his father said to him, we've learned that you can live 3 weeks without food, and 2 weeks without water, and in 3 days without water, but you can't live 3 minutes without hope. And that sense of hope and meaning, that's what the Chanukiah, that's what Hanukkah gave him, and he never forgot it for the rest of his life.
And the guy who was talking, who was rebating you,
Yes.
he said, okay, whatever makes you
Whatever
go
gets
through
you through the night.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, whatever gets you through the
Right.
night. What do you think about that?
I think, look, it's not, that assumes that people believe in religion just because it makes them feel better. But I think that that's nonsense. Sometimes religion makes you feel better, sometimes it makes you feel worse. Sometimes you wonder about God in a way you don't have to if you're not religious. Being part of a religion sometimes is, as you know, for Jews in particular, is difficult, not easy. So it's dismissive and it's not, it was cute, but it didn't actually speak to the real question.
I think it was cute.
I think he wasn't trying to be mean. It's okay.
I think it was a little bit arrogant.
It may have been a little bit arrogant, but in debates, people, you have to have a thick skin.
Okay, that's
What do you think Judaism brings to humanity in the sense of sense for life?
The two things that
The
Judaism
meaning for life.
focuses on that don't necessarily get focused on in these debates is, first of all, Judaism always asks questions. A debate is very natural for Jews. The Talmud is all about questions and answers. And second, we really believe that the essence of faith is how you behave. Not how you believe, but how you behave. And so if you're decent and kind and good and you act in a way that God wishes for you, that's more important than what you think about God. And that's not the general religious view, but it's very much the Jewish religious view.
What is your meaning of life?
My meaning of life is exactly that, I think Judaism teaches you that the central meaning of life is to grow in soul. That's why you're here.
To grow?
To grow in soul.
Okay.
That's why you're here. You can do that in lots of ways, through the people who you love, through the work that you do, through the books that you read, through lots of ways. But you're here to go back to God with your soul deeper and more beautiful than it was first given.
And what is the good thing, the advantage that you felt you had over the other party?
What was the advantage? I think I was quite sure in what I was approaching and said, and I've done a lot of debates and speaking, and also in a different way, one of the advantages is that I'm actually a speaker. It's what I do for a living, as opposed to being an academician or editing a magazine. And by the way, since you have me on television, if you go on Facebook, and you go on my Facebook page, which is Rabbi Wolpe, it has all the sermons I give. And since I have to do that every week, getting in front of people was, for me, very natural. And also, I thought most of the crowd was a religious crowd, which isn't usually true in these debates. Usually they're in front of universities, and it's people who are not religious. So.
Yes, and have you had any contact with the Jewish community in Mexico?
Last year when I was here, I had some contact, and I have members of my congregation in Los Angeles who are Mexicans. So who told me that if I go to Puebla, I must have mole, or they don't never want to see me again.
Did you have mole?
Not yet.
Did you like it?
I haven't had it yet.
No,
Oh,
not
yes.
yet. Okay.
Not yet.
We should
But
teach
before I
you
go back,
about
right?
it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anyone
Thank you.
wants to make another question?
Yes. How do you deal with
This
anti-Semitism?
is my son.
With anti-Semitism, it depends how it's expressed. But I mean, in America, it's less of a problem than it is in other countries. But in America, the way that people deal with it is by combating it. We're not quiet. We're not shy. We don't move away. We argue about it. We put it in the press. We talk about it. We're very aggressive in combating anti-Semitism. I've been to places like in France or in England where sometimes Jews are a little bit more reticent. They're not as willing to confront it. But in the United States, we do.
Excellent.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I make a link between Passover and the Holocaust. I think we keep going in the same hole. You see, Jewish I'm talking about. We never learn about what did happen to us over the time. And what would be your advice?
My advice would be, first of all, to be careful not to blame Jews for what other people do. Anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem, it's a non-Jewish problem, right? Because they're the anti-Semites. What we need to do is to be who we are, and sooner or later, we hope that the world will accept it. But if you constantly try to adjust yourself so the world will accept you, then you'll stop being yourself, and they still won't accept you.
Do you think this is the problem of Israel today?
It's a problem. It's a problem. Israel has a very hard time. I mean, you have to care about the opinion of the world as a country. Because Israel's not, it's not the Jewish religion. It's a nation among nations. But at the same time, you also have to try to assert who you are. And it's very, very tricky. Very tricky in Israel's, you know, it's not easy, as you know.
Because sometimes we feel Israel wants to fit into the nation.
Sometimes it tries to fit, and sometimes it gives up trying to fit, and it's hard, you know, and I don't think there's any single answer that you can give that actually is broad enough to cover the whole case.
Okay, is there anybody who wants to ask a question?
Yes, hi.
Sure.